What is going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be ranking the best offenses in college football heading into the 2024 season. I'm going to be ranking this off of the actual 10 teams who I think have the most talented offenses in college football. So teams like Liberty and Memphis will not be on this list. They have good offenses, but they don't have elite offenses, and they are in weak conferences. There's a lot of talented offenses in college football, so let's talk about some of them. And one of the first offenses that comes to mind is Oregon. They may have lost some big pieces on the offensive side, like the veteran quarterback Bo Nix. They also lost Bucky Irvin at running back, and they lost their leading receiver Troy Franklin. But they replaced the talent very well in the transfer portal, and they have players that are due for breakout years in 2024. They picked up Dillon Gabriel out of the transfer portal, who is basically a copy and paste of Bo Nix. They just have different play styles, but he's going to put up similar numbers that Bo Nix did. They also added five-star quarterback Dante Moore for the future. Dante Moore does still have some questions, considering he didn't have a great year at UCLA, but he didn't have much to work with, and he should definitely learn a lot working for that Oregon offense. But Dillon Gabriel is going to be that guy in 2024, and he should fit that Oregon offense perfectly. He reminds me a lot of Marcus Mariota. He is Hawaiian, and he should also be very good on the ground, and he's a decent passer as well. He's very mobile, and he can move out of the pocket to make throws. Oregon also has Jordan James at running back and Tess Johnson at wide receiver, and they are both due for incredible breakout seasons in 2024. Oregon has a top 3 transfer portal class in the country. Like I said, they added Dillon Gabriel, but they also added 5-star Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart could potentially be that number 1 or number 2 guy for Dillon Gabriel. They have a very underrated tight end room with Terrence Ferguson and Patrick Herbert coming back. But they also added FCS running back transfer Jay Harris to add to an already insane running back room. The offensive line was one of the best in 2023, and they returned multiple pieces there. Offensive coordinator Will Stein will be heading into his second year with Oregon, and this offense should put up similar numbers to what it did in 2023, and they should possibly even take a step up. We should expect Dillon Gabriel to put up numbers similar to Bo Nix. The next team I want to talk about is the Texas Longhorns. You could easily put Texas at number 1. Quinn Ewers is back, and he is going to take on a big role as a leader in 2024. This is a very talented team from top to bottom. Steve Sarkisian is recruiting at a top 5 level, and all of that talent is going to pay off. They have wide receivers who could step up to replace Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, but they also added some great receivers from the transfer portal. They added probably the best wideout in the transfer portal, Isaiah Bond, and they also added 2 very productive receivers in Matthew Golden and Silas Bolden. They also added 4-star tight end Amari Niblack from Alabama, and I believe they returned every single starter on the offensive line. This is the same offense, same concept, just different weapons for Quinn Ewers to throw to. Still a great running back room, and CJ Baxter is due for a breakout year at Texas, and Jaden Blue also has potential. This offense should go crazy in 2024, and watching Quinn Ewers throw to Isaiah Bond all year is going to be amazing to watch. Steve Sarkisian is an incredible offensive mind, and I expect this offense to do incredible things in 2024. The next team I want to talk about is Ole Miss. They averaged 35 points per game in 2023, which was 16th in the country. This offense was pretty good last season, but this offense has the potential to be elite in 2024. Lane Kiffin is an incredible offensive mind that came from the Alabama coaching staff, and he learned from the GOAT Nick Saban as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Ole Miss could be a serious problem in the SEC if they put it together, and Ole Miss could definitely be a contender. They returned Jackson Dart at quarterback, who was a dark horse to win the Heisman Trophy in my opinion. They have an underrated receiving corps, and Trey Harris is back. They also have 1,000-yard receiver Juice Wells, who transferred from South Carolina. They are very deep at wide receiver, and Jordan Watkins and their tight end are back. They returned multiple pieces on the offensive line, and this is a very experienced team, and they will have an even better offense in 2024. The only real concern that they have on offense is that they lost Quinshon Judkins at running back. He is one of the best running backs in college football, but they added 2 solid backs. They added Henry Parrish and Rashad Amos. They also returned Ulysses Bentley, and he was very productive, rushing for 5.7 yards per carry. The offense is due for an incredible year. The difference maker for this team is going to be the defense, and that is what ultimately is going to determine their season. But we aren't talking about defenses in this video. We will make a video talking about the best defenses in college football soon. Another great offense I want to talk about is Georgia. Georgia is usually a defensive football team, but they actually had an incredible offense last season. They had 40 points per game in 2023, and Georgia was probably a better offensive team in 2023 than they were on the defensive side. Carson Beck will be starting his second year in college football, and this offense is going to put up numbers. They have some unproven wideouts. They have multiple options though. Dominic Lovett is back, and he could have an incredible year as wide receiver number 1. They do also return Dillon Bell, and he was pretty productive, so he's a big piece to have back. They also added transfer portal wide receiver Colby Young from Miami, so they do have some options at wide receiver, and I expect some guys to step up, just like some guys stepped up last season. It's going to be very hard to replace Brock Bowers, but let's not forget Carson Beck was still impressive in the games last season, even when Brock Bowers got injured. And Georgia added tight end Benjamin Urasek from the transfer portal, and he should fill a role as a productive tight end. Oscar Delpt is an underrated tight end, and he will be back. He had 24 catches for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns as a sophomore last season. Carson Beck has a pretty solid receiving core, and we know Georgia is going to have a great offensive line. They also have a great running back room, and they added Trevor Etienne from Florida. This offense should be one of the SEC's best. The next team I want to talk about is Alabama. And maybe I have Alabama too high, but I cannot put Alabama any lower on my list because Kalen DeBoer is going to keep that offense playing at a high level. Just look at what he did with Les at Washington. And Jalen Milroe has massive potential with the guidance of Kalen DeBoer. Jalen Milroe does get a lot of criticism. He's an inconsistent passer and he does have to work on his passing game. But he is an incredible athlete and he can make some incredible plays at the quarterback position if you give him time to. If he develops a consistent passing game, he is going to prove a lot of haters wrong, and I truly believe that. He has Washington transfer Jeremy Bernard to throw to, and Jeremy Bernard should light it up at wide receiver for Alabama. Alabama also returns Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law, and look for them to take massive strides in 2024. They have a very underrated running back room that does not get talked about enough. Justice Haynes and Jam Miller are going to be a force for Alabama, and don't be surprised if this is one of the best backfields in the country. Kalen DeBoer is an incredible offensive mind, and his presence will help elevate this Alabama offense. I wouldn't be surprised if they manage to have the number 1 scoring offense in the SEC, because Kalen DeBoer is your head coach. The next team I want to talk about is LSU. They had the number 1 scoring offense in college football last season. Jayden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy, and maybe I do have them too low because of how incredible that offense was last season. But let's be honest, they lost their offensive coordinator, they lost Jayden Daniels, and they lost 2 receivers that went in the first round of the NFL draft. This offense should honestly take a step back, but they should still be very good offensively, and that's why I have them in this top 10. I know Garrett Nussmeier is going to put up numbers, and he has an incredible arm. Kyron Lacy is going to go off for potentially 1,000 receiving yards, and they also have one of the most experienced offensive lines in the whole country, and this is probably the best offensive line in the SEC. They have a solid group of running backs with Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson. This offense should be very good again in 2024, but it is going to be very hard to replicate the same numbers from last year because of what they lost, and it's going to be very hard to replace a Heisman Trophy quarterback in Jayden Daniels. The next team I want to talk about is Ohio State. Some people probably would have them higher just because of how much talent they have, but I honestly don't know if they even have a top 10 offense if I evaluate every position. I know the defense is probably the best in the country, and that's just my opinion, but Ohio State still has some questions at quarterback. Yes, Will Howard should be a good quarterback. He's very immobile, and he's a lot bigger than Kyle McCord was. He's also a very experienced quarterback, which Kyle McCord was not. Ohio State struggled at quarterback last season. The offensive line had its concerns as well. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. They lost Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver as well. Don't get me wrong, I have no questions at wide receiver. I know they are going to be elite at wide receiver. They have Abuka, they have Jeremiah Smith, they have Cornell Tate. They have a lot of options at wide receiver. And they will be better at quarterback, and they will also be better at the offensive line. They probably have the best running back duo in college football with Judkins and Henderson. The offense should be very good, maybe borderline elite, but I just don't think it will be quite on the level of the teams I ranked above them. And in my opinion, Will Howard is not an elite quarterback, he's just good. And an elite quarterback can make a big difference, so that's why I don't have them too high on my list. But if we were talking about defensive teams, Ohio State has what it takes to win a national championship with that defense, because an elite defense is what Ohio State has, and that should be the difference maker for this team. But again, this video is not about defenses. so tune in for my next video when I talk about the best defenses in college football soon. The next team I want to talk about is Tennessee. Josh Heupel proved how incredible of an offensive mind he is in 2022. Tennessee had the #1 scoring offense in 2022, and they had a Heisman Trophy contender at quarterback in Hendon Hooker. This offense did take a step back in 2023, but 2024 should be a step in the right direction. Nico Iamaleava has to set the foundation for what this offense is going to be. And let's be real, Nico Iamaleava has a higher ceiling than Hendon Hooker had. And Nico Iamaleava has massive potential as a 5-star quarterback. I don't think I can name another young quarterback with as much potential as Nico Iamaleava. It's going to take a lot for that Tennessee offense to get back to the 2022 numbers it was putting up. But they have the future of quarterback set with Nico Iamaleava. They have Squirrel White back. He had 800 yards receiving last year, and he was the leading receiver for this team. Other receivers do need to step up. Brew McCoy will be back though after missing the second half of last season, and they also added a under-the-radar transfer portal wideout, and that guy is Chris Braswell from Tulane, and he was Tulane's leading receiver last season. Dylan Sampson ran for 133 yards against Iowa in last season's bowl game. The Dylan Sampson should take a big step forward in 2024 to replace the 1,000-yard rusher Jalen Wright. The offensive line should also be pretty good. They added 5-star offensive tackle Lance Hurd from LSU. This should be an improved offense in 2024, and who knows what the ceiling for this offense could be. The next team I want to talk about is Missouri. They returned Brady Cook and possibly the best wide receiver in college football, Luther Burden. Those two are huge to have back because they might just be the best quarterback receiver duo in college football right now. And they both could be dark horses to win the Heisman Trophy. They also added 2 very productive running backs from the Group of 5 level, Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel. They added one of the best offensive tackles from the transfer portal, Caden Green. They also have a very deep receiving core that is extremely underrated. They returned their top 4 wide receivers from last season. They all had 380 plus yards last season. They also returned their starting tight end, who was 5th in receiving yards for this team last season. So they returned their top 5 targets from last season. This offense might be one of the more underrated offenses in the whole country. They don't just have Luther Burden, but they have many options at wide receiver. Missouri also has an easy schedule in 2024, and I'm looking forward to see what this offense could do in 2024. And the last team I want to talk about is the Miami Hurricanes, and this is kind of bold of me for putting them on this list, but they did take strides last season. They had a top 40 scoring offense in college football last season, and I know that's not great, but it is good, and they had a top 3 scoring offense in the ACC. They took massive strides offensively in 2023. They were not a great team in 2022. They were a little bit better last season. But even despite having pretty average quarterback play, they still managed to have a pretty good offense. But the thing that makes this team scary is the fact that they replaced Tyler Van Dyke with the top 10 college football quarterback Cam Ward. Cam Ward will have a much better offensive line to back him up. Cam Ward has never had a great team around him, and he's going to have a lot of talent around him at Miami. And he should probably be the best quarterback in the ACC, if you do ask me. Miami also added a top 10 college football running back in Damian Martinez. Maybe he's not a top 10 college football running back, but he's definitely a top 20 college football running back. He was a 1,000-yard rusher at Oregon State, and he should be a beast for Miami. But Miami also returns 1,000-yard receiver Xavier Restrepo, and they also return 800-yard receiver Jacoby George. They added Sam Brown from Houston, who had 800 yards for a bad team last season. They also have the young Isaiah Horton, who could take strides in 2024 as well. The offensive line is good, and this offense should take another huge step forward in 2024. And I honestly think the addition of Cam Ward at quarterback is huge for this team, and it could really be a difference maker. This could be a top 10 offense next season in my opinion. That's going to do it for my top 10 offenses in college football. I know I left some good offenses off of this list. For example, Oklahoma, who had one of the best offenses scoring-wise in the country last season, but I do think they are going to take a step down on that side of the ball. They have concerns on the offensive line, and Jackson Arnold still has a lot to prove. I also left USC off, but regardless, there are a lot of great offenses in college football right now, so this is just my opinion, but you guys let me know what you disagree with down in the comments below. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me remind you guys to like the video, and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel, because we upload a ton of college football content, and we basically cover everything on this channel, so definitely consider subscribing. And also consider checking out my socials down in the description below. But that is going to do it guys, and peace out.